Hi there, it's Kevin with RogueDeckBuilder.com here with another brew session for the Fate Reforged cards. I hope you all enjoyed your pre-release. I sure did. I'm going to go ahead and do a deck tech once I can find my camera and do a live deck tech of how I did on my pre-release. Spoiler alert, I went 5-0 with the deck, and one of the cards that I got actually two cards that would work really well in this deck that you have before you that I'm going to be brewing around, one of my top 10 cards. And let's just look at that card. I was able to pick up two of the Flame Week Phoenixes in the pre-release, and it just really got me thinking of the Mono Red Devotion again. And then I was trying to think about getting this card, the Rally the Ancestors, to work, and I think I have found the perfect deck. Now again, Rally the Ancestors, the cards is a basically one-trick pony. You're going to be able to use it one time, and then all those cards are going to be exiled. So you want stuff to enter the battlefield that can get value. And I've been reading over the comments over here on this section over here, and I just don't think a lot of these people understand the power of Rally Ancestors. Now, when I first started brewing around this card, I thought about Grey Merchant of Asphodel as well as Siege Rhino, and then I was trying to think about ways to get a bunch of cards in the graveyard and Dark Deal. I built the Dark Deal deck. That was the first cards that I was able to pick up as soon as possible from Fate Reforged was Dark Deal. And the Waste Not deck is very fun. I just don't know how competitive it's going to be because it's really dependent on Waste Not being on turn 2. And then top decks are your biggest enemy. I've been playtesting a ton of games of the Waste Not Dark Deal deck, and it seems to be going okay. So I still have some missing pieces. So if you haven't seen that, you can go check back in my video history and you can see a few brews with the Waste Not deck. Anywho, I thought that a Waste Not would work out perfectly with, or Dark Deal would work out perfectly with Rally Ancestors. It'd be a way to get a bunch of your cards in the graveyard and then try to find your Rally the Ancestors. And once you do finally find your Rally the Ancestors, if you're running the Siege Rhino Grey Merchant, it's just 7 mana to get all of your Grey Merchants back from the graveyard to the battlefield. So it started as a Grey Merchant Siege Rhino, and then I just started thinking, what could I put in here? Have some good enter the battlefield effects? And I really thought about the Fanatic of Mogus. Now, these guys are right here on the sideboard. They're saying that cards need haste. Well, there's a card in Standard that actually works for both Mono Red Devotion and gives your guys haste, and that happens to be the good old Hammer of Perforos. So Hammer of Perforos and the Rally the Ancestors is a pretty sick combination. Also, Rally the Ancestors is just a pretty sweet card if you want to utilize haste creatures. So I'm pretty sure I'll try a Rally the Ancestors haste deck. I think 4 is the sweet spot because at 4 mana you get a ton of really good haste creatures. There's like the new Shaman of the Great Hunt. There's also like Oracle of Bones, things like that I think will go well with Rally Ancestors. So anyway, that'll be a deck for another day. Right now, what you're looking for is the good old Mono Red Devotion shell. And again, we get some pretty sweet pieces with this set. We also get the Mardu Scout, which is a 3/1 for 2 mana. And the dash ability is kind of sweet. If you can get in there for just a bit of damage here and there for dash whenever they're open, or you can just turn to drop this dude Mardu Scout, and you've already got that red devotion that then you can exploit. If you have 2 of these out, then your Nightthose Shining Nyx are generating extra mana, and then you can go crazy with the Fanatic of Mogus. So I'm trying to figure out what route I want to go with this deck. I'm thinking that like cards like Stormbreath Dragon might have a place in here, but right now I'm just trying to utilize as much devotion as possible. So the whole idea of this deck is we're going to try to put a lot of early pressure on our opponents, and when our opponents do inevitably kill our stuff, it will be Rally the Ancestors, which will be the finisher, bringing back a bunch of stuff. Just doing the math here, if you have just one Fanatic of Mogus, one Eidolon of Great Revel, a Forgeborn Oreads, and like a Perforos God of the Forge, that's some significant damage. So let's see, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 from the Fanatic of Mogus. So the Fanatic of Mogus is doing 5 damage. Perforos is doing 6 damage by reading the other 3. Forgeborn Oreads is doing 3 damage. So that's what, 14 damage right there that the combination will do. Now the coolest thing, if you have multiple Perforoses out, they will enter the battlefield at the same time and read the entire board state, and the triggers will go off. So that's what I really like about the Tormenting Voice in here, is you can get excess of the legendary stuff. So Nykthos Shrine of Nyxes you can discard, Hammer of Perforoses you can discard, and like excess Perforoses you can discard Tormenting Voice. Also, it gets them in the graveyard, and it gets you closer to that Rally of the Ancestors. So there's 7 cards missing out of this deck. I don't know if 24 is the right land count, if that's too little or too much, but the other slots will definitely go to either Mardu Scout, some combination of Mardu Scout, Flame Wake Phoenix, and Rally of the Ancestors. Also, there's some cards I thought about using, like Nyxborn Rollicker. Fits kind of the devotion. It gives you a 1-drop if you want a 1-drop, but we don't really care about a 1-drop in this deck because we're going to be using Temple of Triumphs and Wind-Scarred Crags, hopefully, on our turn 1, and then turn 2, drop down a 2-drop in the form of either the Eidolon of the Great Revel or the 3/1 Goblin, Dashing Goblin. So Forgeborn Oreads is really good in this deck because we are going to be utilizing enchantment cards. Again, if you have 2 Forgeborn Oreads in the graveyard, when they come into play, they'll do 4 damage to target creature or player because they'll both read themselves and each other, and so they'll trigger 2 each with the Rally of the Ancestors. And if you happen to have like an Idol of Great Revel out, then you're going to be doing 6 damage. So the Rally of the Ancestors will be of course, the finisher, and Forgeborn is just another way to finish off your opponent with, the enter the battlefield type effect, at least getting some sort of value. So, and then if we have Hammer of Perforos out, then there's just lots of synergies in this deck. Hammer of Perforos with the Forgeborn Oreads is actually going to do an extra damage every time you sacrifice a land. The Forgeborn's really cool with the Phoenix because it's a 4/2. That means that Ferocious is enabled, and that means that you can bring back your Flame Wake Phoenix during combat phase to attack in for 2 more damage. So really love this card. In the pre-release, again, I had this card, and I had 2 of these actually, and it was incredibly good. All right, so what else am I going to talk about this deck? It's just good old mono red devotion. I think we have all the pieces again. No Boros Reckoner, and Boros Reckoner really did make the nutty draws with mono red devotion. But besides that, I think we have a decent little replacement for the Ash Zealot in the form of the Goblin. And Chain of the Rocks is still incredibly good in the format. And we have the Tormenting Voices, which can, again, get rid of excess. One of the problems with the old mono red devotion was if you had too many Nykthos Shrine of Nyxes, it was just a dead card that stuck in your hand. With Tormenting Voice, you can get rid of it and then go from there. So I don't know, Stormwrath Dragon might want to be in here. I have a Twin Flame for right now. Twin Flame's a really cool card. If you have 5 mana and say you have a Fanatic of Mogus and like even a Forgeborn out, that's another way for Twin Flame. You can copy both of those and they'll read each other, or at least the Forgeborn will read the one in play. The Fanatic of Mogus will read the new Forgeborn coming into play on the old Forgeborn. Twin Flame's just really, there's some fun stuff you can do with Twin Flame and Fanatic of Mogus, and a lot of times it's worth its weight. I just like to run a 1-of for mostly fun factor, but sometimes it is the difference between doing a huge Fanatic of Mogus copy. You have even 2 of these out, you can copy them. So I don't know. Twin Flame might be something that will go over the sideboard. You'll have to mess around with this. I have a Chandra Pyromaster in here as well, just because it's good devotion. It's good for card draw. There's a lot of cool cards that could actually potentially go in this deck from the new set. I really like the Manifest card out of white. See if we can find it here real quick, where it's an enchantment for 2 mana. So again, you're going to be getting the value out of the Oreads each time. This card right here, this Mastery of the Unseen. Whenever a permanent you control is turned face up, you gain 1 life, and then manifest the top card of your library. Unfortunately, though, the Manifests are not, if you unmanifest them, they don't get the enter the battlefield effect. So we'll have to wait and see if this card was used against me in the pre-release, and it was incredibly powerful. So there was one other card I thought about. It's the Citadel Siege or Tower Siege, something like that. We'll find it here. It is Outpost Siege. Outpost Siege says, if you use Cons of being your upkeep, exile top card of your library. You may play that card, so it's card draw for red. It's 4 mana, but that 4 mana is not too shabby for and this is going to hit your devotion. It's actually going to keep a devotion out here. So Outpost Siege would definitely go in the sideboard, I would think, against like any sort of control route or grindy game. And then you choose cons. But dragons is kind of cool too. Whenever creature you control leaves the battlefield, Outpost Siege deals 1 damage to our creature player. Works really well with that dash with the Mardu Scout each time. So now your guy's hitting for 4 damage because he's actually going to leave the battlefield. He's going to come in, dash, do 3 damage, and then leave the battlefield. So Outpost Siege is another card I definitely thought about putting in the deck. And I did think about Alicia, but everything has over the power than 2. You won't get much value out of it. So let me know what you think about this deck. Tons of synergies again. Fanatic Amogus works with the Phoenix. The Eidolon of Great Revel is going to get in there for some damage before they either deal with it or it's going to stick out with their devotion. I think that's a pretty solid, complete deck. And Rally of the Ancestors really just gives it the reach that it needs. I know at first I was like desperately looking for ways to put cards in the graveyard and then just generate up to 6 mana for the Rally of the Ancestors. But I just thought, hey, I'll put stuff that has to be answered into play. And maybe if it's even 1, 2, 3 of these cards in the graveyard, just even 2 Fanatic Amoguses in the graveyard, and say if you have a Hammer Perforos out, they're going to come in and they're both going to see each other, so they're going to add 2 there and then an extra 2 from the hammer, so it's going to do 8 damage, and they're going to be able to swing for possibly another 8. And it's just, I think Hammer Perforos is one of the most synergistic things you can do with Rally of the Ancestors. So let me know what you think about this deck. It's going to be one of the very first ones that when it's on MTGO that I will be brewing. Let me know if I've missed any obvious cards here. I tend to do that with especially new cards. If you know a card that would go perfectly in this deck, let me know. This has been Kevin with RogueDeckBuilder.com. Thanks for watching.